Good morning. Today my story is not going to be done by me. Today I will be having an in-home behavioral specialist sign on to give you some insight and information on adulthood with autism.
Hello everyone, this is Great Guy Number 1 coming at you to talk to you about adulthood in autism. As you know, it is April and it is Autism Awareness Month, and I am doing a guest appearance on Miranda's Snapchat. What I do for work is I actually work as an in-home behavioral specialist, and my job is to monitor behaviors, report new behaviors, and also make sure that my direct care staff is intervening. Most of my clients in this home have some type of autism or another special need, and a lot of them have dual diagnoses. A little bit of history about myself. I got into the field about 10 years ago, and I worked with all ages. I started in a preschool. The preschool was integrated, and then I took a job with adolescents, and now I have this job as a behavioral specialist in the adult world. What a lot of people would like to know is why we hear so much about autism now and even other special needs when we didn't so much in the past. This is because here in the USA, a lot of people with special needs were committed to asylum. If you want to look at one of the most infamous ones, this is the Ladd School of Exeter, Rhode Island, and it even says right on the website that it was a school for the feeble-minded. That's actually what they called it at that time. They kept people with special needs here from infancy throughout adulthood, and over 5,000 people lived and died there. You can even see over here in the little blog that it is one of the top 10 haunted places to visit in Rhode Island. This isn't the only asylum. There was asylums all across the country where that they would just lock away people with special needs. The idea was that they would have to go in there and stay in there and be locked away from society because they weren't good for society anyway. All asylums were closed down in the early 90s. This one was closed down in 1993, and that was pretty recent because Human Rights Acts passed, and we want everybody to live enriched, full lives. The Human Rights Act now promotes that people with special needs deserve the same amount of respect that anybody else does. In adulthood, residential group home, which is where I work, is to promote the enriched lives that the clients deserve. I'm going to do a basic walkthrough. This is one of the bedrooms. This is a kitchen. The dining table. This is their bathroom with their chair to sit in while they shower. Some of them are wheelchair bound. Another bedroom. The client has his own TV and a sensory ball. Very large living room. And a downstairs living room. Client bean bags and some other sensory tools, and exercise bike. And this is their laundry room. But as you can see, it's very much like a regular house, not like an asylum where they're locked up and put away. There are clients that I work with that have jobs in the typical community that a typically developing person would normally have. But I generally work with more of the behavioral people who are very low on the spectrum. Any inappropriate verbal behavior can be considered swearing, screaming at the wrong time, laughing at times where they shouldn't, such as somebody getting hurt, a lot of clients still need toilet training or are not toilet trained and need to be in briefs. Toilet training is a process that they may or may not be successful at depending on the person, but programs are in place for everybody anyway. This right here is one of my nonverbal clients. He is making a puzzle, and he is very, very talented at. This is basically a leisure activity for him. It can keep him focused, but also a calming activity. You can see he's already almost done with it. Good job, my friend. And this is the lifesaver in the nonverbal world, and that's picture schedules. They have to be made very simple. A lot of my clients only understand first and then, and break time is very important for them. For somebody higher on the spectrum, they can understand a daily schedule. Alright, and now I'm going to talk about some of my struggles as a direct care professional as well as a behavior specialist. And I'm going to base that on when my clients actually run into people who don't really understand autism. My biggest struggles is inappropriate touching with my client when they are out in the community to strangers. They have no sense of stranger danger. Sometimes a client will go into a grocery store and go up to a person and give them a hug without warning. Keeping in mind that the client is an adult person, and my job at that time is to redirect, maybe to a handshake or just a simple say hello. I want to say almost 90% of the time, if I run into that situation, the person that is the target is like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. But as for a behavioral point of view, it's really not, because I'm trying to teach him a proper skill, and that's what I'm getting paid for. Another struggle is to try to deal with a tantrum out in public, and I have to escort the client from the premises. That is when I will get a lot of the looks from other people that might be potential triggers for that particular client. Or people will come and try to help me and tell me that they have like a brother with. But we have what is called safety care training through the agency, which is what we use to physically manage a client, and you have to be certified in that. And if we let somebody else help out that isn't certified, we could end up getting ourselves in a lot of trouble. The other struggle with that is if they are having some kind of a tantrum and are at a crisis situation, people will run over to and giving them things that might be reinforcing that tantrum to try to use as a calming method. We are taught that you do not give any kind of reinforcer at crisis situation. The best time to give reinforcers, the reason being because if they're in a crisis situation and they're getting a reinforcer, they're going to stay in crisis situation. Reinforcers should generally always be given at baseline. I had Miranda seek out some questions about adulthood with autism, and I'm going to do my best to answer them for you. First one is, does a regression occur in adulthood? The answer is yes, and it is actually more common in adulthood, in my experience, because we have to deal with such things as staff inconsistency, skills that we do not know that they learned in their previous day programs in their adolescent world or even their earlier world. For example, if a client learns sign language in his day program when he was an adolescent, and if they become an adult and just stop practicing it, they're going to lose what they don't use. Also, regression happens to everyone in the even older years. When a client reaches an elderly age, that is adulthood as well, and they may start regressing in things such as speech, toileting, etc., etc. Next question, do irrational fears follow into adulthood? The answer is yes. In fact, that's something that I have to deal with almost on a daily basis. In that case, I don't see much difference from the adult world and the child world. However, there are ways to cope and help them cope through their irrational fears in the adult world. This also depends on which spectrum of autism they are on. My adults that I work with are fairly low on the spectrum, so most of the time, yes, they do follow. I like this question. Is it possible for a nonverbal person to ever talk? The answer is yes, but let me start at the beginning. When a child is first learning speech at an early age, there have been occurrences where they talk at that time but then regress to a nonverbal state. There are also occurrences of children who never talk through childhood and adulthood. There are occurrences where adults learn to say maybe a word or two. It's not the same type of talking that a typical person would, and their vocabulary would be very limited. What is my biggest challenge of working with autistic adults? One of my biggest challenges is what is PC? It should always be person first. You always list the person before whatever diagnosis. So instead of saying autistic adults, I should actually be saying adults who have autism. The politically correct terminology is always changing and it's very difficult to keep up with. But working with the actual adults is the hardest part is the tantruming, because they will throw tantrums just the same as you would see like a toddler throw a tantrum, except they are a lot bigger. And with that comes strength. I can actually show you something that happened during a tantrum one day. This is a hole in the sheetrock over here that was created by a client who was tantruming, throwing his back against the wall. As you could see, it was almost as big as the actual air conditioner, and the thing was that we were also trying to keep him safe. Whenever a client goes into a tantrum that bad, the time limit of the tantrum is always unknown, and also it is also incredibly hard to bring them out of it. What is my favorite thing about my job? My favorite thing is having the opportunity to plan and take out the clients on their community outing. When they're out in the community, either doing their purchasing, going to a restaurant, going to a farm, going to the movies, going to the gym. When a nonverbal, low-functioning person shows a sign of gratitude towards me, I find that more rewarding than anything. Thank you all for listening, and thanks Miranda for letting me share, and this is Great Guy number 1, signing off.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry.
I heard you.
Just say it nicely.
I
Run away. I'm sorry.
Okay. Please get your shoes on for me.
Try. I don't want you to finger it because it sounds like you're just gonna just do it. I'm not gonna say it.
Say what?
I can't say it because you will start doing it. What the heck to say? There's nothing to say.